Hey, how's it going? I'm Alex, host of Maybe Extra Museum Start For Me. That's the podcast you're listening to right now. If you accidentally clicked this or your show that you were listening to rolled over and now you're here, sorry, but I'm glad you're here. I hope you stick around. Don't exit out. Anyway, we have a fun show for you today. I'm joined by my coworker, current interim boss, and friend, Melissa Casale, to talk about one of our favorite kind of reoccurring segments on the show, art news. We're going to jump into two topics today. I'm not going to give them away. You'll hear them as you listen. That's why I'm trying to do this quickly so you can get to those topics. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We have a lot of cool stuff to talk about. And yeah, I'm not going to waste any more time. Without further ado, Melissa Casale. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Alex.
We're back.
We're back for an art news episode.
Yes. It's been a little bit since our last episode. I've been on the interview trail, doing a lot of stuff, and it's been a lot of fun, but it's inevitably time to come back to home base and do one of our update monthly art news episodes. And there was a bit of stuff that's happened relatively recently that I wanted to get into. Some of it's relative to MAM in some ways. I have no idea what you're presenting because we've not really, I've told you what mine is, but we haven't talked about yours, so I have no idea what you're bringing to the table. But like always, I'm not going to spend too much time kind of jumping right in. I want to just cover a few headlines that we're not going to like dive into, but yeah. I think that it's worth noting so that we can kind of cement where we are in time and space. But starting off with the first article, New York City's American Folk Art Museum is closing for renovations. A rare Eva Hesse painting has been found at a Goodwill auction. It's a work called Landscape Forms from 1959. The whereabouts were unknown for about a decade, and it's headed to Christie's. Yeah. And then the last thing that I've seen in the kind of my searching of the headlines is that a looted Greco-Roman statue goes on display in Cleveland prior to its repatriation return to Turkey. Alas. I got a story, Melissa.
Okay.
That I want to get into.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Rothko.
Yeah.
You know Rothko. We all love Rothko.
Yeah. Rothko's
great. One of his most famous works is called Orange on Maroon number 8. It's from 1960. It's coveted. It's beloved. It is at the... My Dutch isn't good. But it's at the Boymans van Beuningen Museum.
Okay.
Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. It doesn't... Boymans van Beuningen Museum.
Okay. My Dutch is not any better than yours.
Yeah,
so.
But didn't you live there?
No.
Where did you live again?
Denmark.
Denmark. Yeah, it's Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a child visiting the museum scratched the painting and has since damaged it, and it has been taken off of view. The scratches were located in like the lower part of the painting.
Yeah.
It pretty much affected like an unvarnished like paint layer. The artwork, which I feel bad for, obviously the museum, but it's a pretty hefty burden. The painting's worth about $40 or $50 million. So
wow.
Yeah, it's not a cheap painting.
No.
It was kind of the landmark and most coveted painting in a show called Rothko and Me, where it previously exhibited. And essentially it was so coveted in that 2019 and 2020 show that most viewers had to queue up for about 10 minutes. So like, I mean, not as long as we waited to see the show in DC, but you waited in line.
But this also, like, this line was specifically for this painting.
For this painting, because you could see it in a private room by yourself and you would get time with it alone.
Wow.
So like, it's a very big deal.
Yeah. Does this museum own this work, or was it traveling for this exhibition?
From what I understand, it is owned by this museum.
Okay.
It was not technically on view in the museum itself. So what the museum does, which is another interesting conversation, because here we often talk about like, we have hundreds, thousands of works of art here at MAM. Mind you, we have a small collection in comparison to a lot of other institutions, but over 10,000 works. And there's always been a conversation of like, how do you justify not showing certain works? When do certain works go on view? What are the, moral questions of not showing works that we have in our collection? It's not just a MAM battle. It's a museum industry-wide battle. And their answer, which I'm sure comes with plenty more funding, is that they had an auxiliary site called the Depot. Essentially, I think the actual main Boymans Museum is under renovation right now. And so this work, alongside others, were a part of a separate exhibition thing at this like auxiliary depot location where it was showing. Essentially, the depot is the museum's public access storage art facility. And it was, it's there on view. It's the best the museum can do as its ongoing renovations until 2029. So like,
wow.
Yeah. And it was a part of this collection that was essentially like their most coveted works. Mm-hmm. So that's where it was scratched while it was technically in storage.
How?
Viewable storage.
Yeah. How did he scratch it?
Like, they didn't.
Using what?
I think his fingers.
Just
like
his
they
hands?
Didn't,
Okay.
They didn't really get into it. But yeah, the child, they scratched it, and they're not really saying how. They said it's small, minimal, repairable damage.
Okay.
But regardless, it's now probably a hefty conservation effort. Like they're seeking.
Yeah.
They put out an international wide call for conservators to come and offer their expertise to fixing this damage.
Yeah, I'm sure there's specific people who like particularly would know how to work with a Rothko or similar-esque
caliber
paintings.
Of painting. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation about like, obviously, like, I don't think this conversation should go in the direction of like kids need to be like watched better when they're in museums. Obviously, yes, like your toddler shouldn't be like sprinting through a museum where there's priceless art. Like that's, especially even if it's not priceless. In this case, it's $50 million worth of art. Like it's very much not priceless.
Well, then
it has a price.
It also goes into the questions of like, should everything be behind glass? Should there be ropes this far back? And it's just this whole.
And yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing we battle here at MAM. Like we have a work right now by Sarah Z on view, which previously was unexposed, or exposed, I should say.
When it first came up, there wasn't any sort of roping around it.
And that was a part of the intention of the artist, was it to be, you could get close to it, you could examine it, you could walk near it. But, after some close calls at, events, frankly, with children present, it was too risky to the art and it had to be like stanchioned off. And that's unfortunate, but like it was a decision the curatorial staff here had to make. And, I don't blame them for that. I wish it was still, available to get up close and personal, but it's totally understandable why we can't. Most recently at the museum, one of our sculptures outside was damaged. And, at the end of the day, personally with my own philosophy, and I don't expect maybe even you or other people to necessarily fully agree with me, but in my view, if there is a sculpture outside in the inclement weather, whatever, that is exposed and there's not any like proper signage to be like, do not climb on this. You have to anticipate a kid's going to climb on it. And I think for many years, decade or more,
people climbed on it.
Yeah, people climbed on that work and others. And, I don't think it was a product of the artwork not being sturdy enough to handle it. But yeah, after a decade of wear and tear, it's gonna
like you said, like the context of it where it's out in the elements, it's fully exposed to all, not just people, but nature. I mean, there's deer that are always roaming around here. But it's a question of like when something does get damaged, whether it's intentional, hopefully it's never intentional. God forbid it's never intentional. Yeah.
Or, more likely accidental. it's a question of like, how do you respond? Do you, like, in this case, like with this museum in the Netherlands, like I wonder, like, do they reconsider how they present art? I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, it's a Rothko.
Well, I think when it's a piece of that caliber or that important to the overall like institution's collection, that it does warrant a conversation of how do we respond, or how what can we do different.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not pro putting art behind glass. I understand why you would. Like, I get why the Mona Lisa is covered. You know, I understand why certain artworks can't be exposed. I get it.
I do too.
But, you know, there are a lot of works of art where being behind glass does impede the experience. And I'm sure for this work, I would be shocked if the curator and the install team and the registrar didn't think that through and truly didn't feel as though this could be behind art, like glass, like it needed to be exposed. And I think it's just really unfortunate. I will say, and I want to say this, museum guards have some of the, like, probably the most important job in museums, frankly. And I don't know if they get their flowers. And I would like to say that there was a very important point that, like, this work, whatever happened, and, you know, there's no pointing fingers, but when the child did gain access to the work, apparently it was in an unguarded moment. That's the quote, an unguarded moment. I don't know what that means. But I don't necessarily, I'm not going to jump and blame and say that, like, oh, the guards were lazy or anything like that. I just, I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to insinuate that, and I don't want to blame them.
They were maybe switching shifts at the time, or they stepped out of the room for a moment, or who knows?
It's impossible to have, you know, consistent eyes on every single artwork in the moment.
And something like that where it happens in a second.
Yeah. Alas. So that is my story. If you want to read the full article, the one that I was kind of referring to is on hyperallergic. But yeah, Melissa, what did you find? So
I found something pertaining to an artist who is actually in Ma'am's collection. So the title is Barbara Kruger to unveil new installation on Ukrainian passenger train.
Whoa.
So for those of you who don't know, Barbara Kruger is an American artist, conceptual artist, who's like famous for her pithy, text-based pieces that kind of comment on how political machines or those in power subject people to propaganda and consumerism, and they really satirize like the industry's voice and how it, and she wants to like make viewers question what they're reading, like why they're reading it, how they hear things, like what we want that to do.
Yeah.
And there's a piece in Ma'am's collection that was recently on view in Taking Space. That's untitled, Seeing Through You, where it's like this graphic photo of a woman's face very up close with the text, Seeing Through You.
It was a favorite of my roommate.
Yes. Yes. So this new project, which is actually meant to be unveiling today on May 1st as we're recording this, is going to be put up in various along a train route in Ukraine. So Ukrainian airspace has been closed since Russia launched its invasion 3 years ago. So like the train travel has been like a lifeline for people trying to move within the country and also out of the country.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Kruger decided to kind of honor the people who are still moving throughout the country and those who have left the country by installing this big text piece along a new train route that's going to be going throughout the Donetsk, I think is how you pronounce it, area of Ukraine, which is the region that harbors some of the like most fighting that is happening.
Yeah.
So it's a typographic work. It's called Untitled parentheses Another Again and parentheses. And it was commissioned by this nonprofit organization, and the text is gonna be in Ukraine solely, which makes sense. It's happening in Ukraine. But the text, I have what it will say, another day, another night, another darkness, another light, another kiss, another fight, another loss, another win, another wish, another sin, another smile, another tear, another hope, another fear, another love, another year, another strife, another life.
Slava Ukraini.
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely falls in line with Kruger's kind of ideology of questioning propaganda and how consumers are kind of played to by manufacturers and the government. And, you know, Russia has been accused of disseminating propaganda to further its goals in Ukraine, like over the entire invasion,
well beyond
even beyond
2014 invasion of Crimea, yeah.
And like, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture, Russia has stolen more than 1.7 million pieces of Ukrainian cultural heritage from various museums and cultural sites throughout the past 3 years. And this article, which I found on Art News, it references this propaganda video that was shot in one of Russia's like main cultural institutions, museums, and like the Kherson Art Museum in Ukraine identified like 100 works within that video that they're like, that's from our collection, that's from our institution. So
gross.
Yeah. But I just, as of right now, there's no pictures of what this installation looks like or anything, but I just thought it was very interesting that for who she is, Barbara Kruger, this was her chosen next kind of project, and it's one of her like largest scale installations.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and you know, obviously, as somebody who is, you know, have Ukrainian heritage, my grandfather was from Ukraine. It definitely speaks to me very strongly, and it's really, really cool to see, and I appreciate, you know, obviously it's contentious politically, internationally, you know, the geopolitical politics of it in this day and age, which, you know, I'm not going to really comment on much, but I think that largely over the past, you know, couple of years that the invasion has been ongoing, the influence that, you know, and pull and commentary that American artists have had, you know, about the struggle of the Ukrainian people has been really inspiring. And it's nice to know that there is just another really, you know, brilliant artist that is throwing their hat in the ring. It's a very special thing.
Yeah.
And is important.
I didn't know much about Kruger until I started working here. I didn't like study her at school or anything, but she was born in 1945 and kind of grew up in this American golden age of advertising that was like the 50s and 60s, where that's where you really start to see like
Mad Men type vibes,
Mad Men type advertising, you know, what's the American dream of, you know, the perfect home life, the perfect car, the perfect house, the perfect everything. And I think it's safe to say that really influenced her artistic style and the types of things that she wants to comment on with her art, and she wants her art to expose. So reading more about like how everything's kind of propaganda. How do we fight against that? How do we make our brains kind of register what we're seeing and maybe filter it out a bit better?
It's a conversation on, and obviously like at school, like I was a communication media studies major, so like we talked about it ad nauseum, you know, but it's this idea of like media literacy. You know, I feel like me and my colleagues in high school and into college, like we had a really good media literacy understanding, and it was emphasized. But I worry that that's not necessarily happening so much in public schools today. I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm not trying to say that at all. Like I certainly learned it during my, tenure in public school in New Jersey, and it was super important. But with the rise of AI and these kind of videos that are almost like indiscernible from reality, and also just the propaganda machines that kind of work, whether that's corporations or governments or, insert the man here.
The man, yeah. Big Brother.
Yeah, like whatever that is, it's like being able to identify what is propaganda, which a lot of times is most things. You can kind of equate anything to propaganda, and how do you discern something, or how do you differentiate like a piece of propaganda from something that is almost like, I'm not gonna say neutral, but it doesn't harm anything. It is what it is. It's an advertisement, because advertising is propaganda. Commercials are propaganda. Yeah. It's propaganda. Like I think we have this idea that like propaganda is this solely political thing, this solely nationalistic thing.
I think because a lot of the references that like we're taught that are propaganda are heavily like military or government based.
I think about, in our collection right now, the Mount Rushmore nieces and nephew, that's inspired by Chinese propaganda, of the time. And yeah, like propaganda is somewhere where a lot of influence can come from, both artistically, but also socially and politically and morally and ethically. And, having the literacy to be able to take in what you're consuming, parse the messages, and move forward both better informed and more aware of what it is you're consuming is really important. Mm-hmm. And, in this, especially within this specific conflict in Ukraine, brought on by the invasion by Russia, having this commentary by Kruger on the influence of propaganda, on almost the I'm trying to think of the right word, but I guess the importance of maintaining normalcy in a way. Mm-hmm. You're talking about how this is going to be installed on a train route that is through one of the most war-torn regions of the conflict, and to have this message and I guess point of I don't want to say inspiration, but this almost reminder of what can be and what is and what should be, and I think kind of a way to ground riders who are in this unthinkable situation and have been for too long.
Yeah.
Alas, art's really important. It's powerful, and I think art injected into the right social moment, political moment, moral moment, can do a lot of good. And I'm glad that Kruger is, at least in this moment, able to kind of plant her flag and hopefully use her art. Not hopefully, she will use her art in a positive way. I don't know if it'll curb the fate of the war, but at least it doesn't not do something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alas. Moving away from this somewhat dark topic, what's going on, Melissa? I think we should probably wrap this up pretty soon, but
yeah,
we haven't had a check-in in a while. So what's been going on in your world? Have you seen been in any good museums recently?
No, I haven't. I haven't been to a museum since my DC trip that I took.
Yeah, but what did you see when you were there?
Oh, we didn't talk about this on the podcast.
No, I was kind of giving you a segue.
Oh, sorry. I went to the National Museum of the American Indian,
nice,
which I've never been to, and I was kind of blown away.
Really?
I loved it. It was great. I was fascinated by it because it's one of the newer Smithsonian institutions. And, you know, going in with all I've learned while working at MAM, and especially with our
interwoven power,
and our like reinstallation and what it took to like put that on and what that looks like. Yeah, it was great. Nice. I know you asked me about how I'm doing, but there was another article that I saw the title that I wanted to tell you about.
Oh, what was it?
Dutch municipality accidentally disposes of Andy Warhol print during town hall renovation.
What is going on?
That's why I was like, what's going on in the Netherlands? Sorry.
Oh my God. Well, all right. Well, I think we should probably pivot away from this and kind of wrap this up because we have stuff we have to do. Yes. It's a weird week at the museum because you're my boss, apparently, for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, our actual boss, Asif,
our fearless leader, Asif.
Yes, he is on vacation and he has put me in charge of the marketing department while he's away.
Yeah, not to put him on blast, but we're gonna because we love him. I was like, Asif, are you gonna go visit any museums while you're over in Italy? You know, you're in this vast, amazing, artistic, cultural wellspring of fine art. And he's like, nah, we don't really do museums.
He said no very quickly.
Yeah, but I'm sure, you know, when you're there, the architecture kind of counts as art. So
yeah, who knows? I feel like they.
He's loving it though. He sent us some photos. He's having a great time. So for anyone in the audience who was a big fan of our art film episode and liked Asif, he's doing good.
He's doing good.
He's in Italy. He's living life. He's eating pizza. You know, everything's well. But and you're my boss right now. You're the interim director of marketing.
Yeah, you keep calling me that, which I'm not sure how I feel about it, but. You know, we're pretty, you're pretty self-sufficient. You do your things that you have to do.
Yeah, I run around like a chicken without a head. But like tonight, because it's Free First Thursday, which is, you know, obviously this is coming out after that event, but I think it's a good time to kind of wrap this up and just kind of say that we have a lot going on here at the Montclair Art Museum. You know, this month is May. If you listened to last week's episode, you would know we're celebrating month of George Inness, birthday of George Inness. Today, actually, on May 1st, when we're recording this, is George Inness's birthday. So there's a lot going on here. We're going to be re-exhibiting and re-showing in a new light with some new works. The George Inness Gallery, it's currently closed because for renovations. It'll be reopened on May 16th. It's going to be really exciting. There's a lot of cool work. So we have some behind the scenes videos coming out in regards to that show. Next week, there's going to be another podcast featuring Adrienne Baxter Bell, the kind of resident scholar of all things Inness. She'll be on to talk to me about the historical context of George Inness and kind of his importance as both, you know, a artist who should be, you know, truly, you know, respected, and also his impact as a cultural figure within Montclair.
Yeah. And kind of speaking of the impact of him, on May 31st, of the very last day of the month, we are having an artist lecture here at the museum all about George Inness. It will be kind of a fresh perspective on his works by present day working artists.
Yep.
And there will be an art activity for kids to come do. We're going to have cake and celebrate his birthday. So you can check out more information about that on the museum website.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Listen, like Melissa said, visit our website for more information on everything we got going on here at MAM. You could find tickets there. You could find classes there. You can find events and workshops there. There's a lot going on the website, and it's definitely the best way to stay informed. Otherwise, the museum galleries are open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Check us out. It's a really great show, and I think there's a lot of great shows on view right now, and I think once George Inness is back in the rotation, it's really worth your time. There's some really cool stuff being presented in that show.
Yeah, you'll get to see videos that Alex has worked on.
Yeah, I kind of forgot they're in there. Yeah, it's true. But anyway, this has been Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. Please, rate and review, subscribe, do all the things wherever you listen. It's really appreciated. Anyway, stay tuned. We have new episodes every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Bye.